Hi and welcome to another gaming video, and in today's video I want to talk about the Switch 2 or the successor to the Switch, whatever you want to call it. I'm not sure Nintendo are going to go down the Switch 2 naming avenue, but it has been in the news that Nintendo are a little bit worried about how they're going to move forward with their games consoles because the Switch has been massively successful. They've got a huge user base, and where do they go from there? And the biggest question is would a Switch 2 be backward compatible? It would make sense because they've got this massive user base of gamers, and do they want to alienate them by bringing out a whole new system with all new games and not being able to play their older ones? And Nintendo have a bit of a track record or a bit of a history of bringing out a successful console and then the follow-up being a bit of a flop. So you've got the N64, which was pretty decent and pretty successful, and then the GameCube, which, while it was a fantastic console, didn't do very well. Then you have the Wii, and it's classed as one of the most successful consoles of all time. And then you've got the Wii U, which was one of the most poorest selling consoles of all time. And the same with the portable market. The DS, I think, is the second biggest selling console of all time and possibly the biggest selling handheld console of all time. And then you've got the 3DS, which was by no means a failure, but it couldn't match the success of the DS. And I think Nintendo are probably a little bit worried that the Switch 2 or the successor to the Switch is going to go the same way. And it is a little bit more pressing for Nintendo because previously they've had handheld consoles and home consoles running side by side, and if one was more successful than the other, that was fine. But with the Switch, they combined everything. So you've got the Switch Lite, which is the kind of successor to the 3DS, their new portable console, and then you've obviously got the full-size Switch, which its unique selling point was the fact that it was a home console and a portable console. And that was a giant risk for Nintendo to not only put their handheld and their home console together, then to bring that out and not know whether it was going to be successful. Luckily, the Switch has been massively successful. It's well into its game life, and I can see that it's got a fair few many years before it's had its day. But these things take a lot of development, and Nintendo have probably been thinking about the Switch 2 since pretty much after the launch of the Switch. And what are they going to do? The biggest thing they could do is make it play Switch games. And when I say play Switch games, I don't mean via some kind of virtual console or rebuying them on some store. It needs a physical cartridge slot to play Switch games. And it doesn't mean that the new console isn't going to be fantastic. They could bring out this massively powerful console, a next-gen console that could compete with the likes of Sony and Microsoft, have fantastic hardware inside, dedicated Switch 2 games that really took advantage of all this increased power, but also have a cartridge slot to play Switch games. For me personally, that would be the best option. I think it would, just like with the 3DS, I mean they launched the 3DS and one of its biggest selling points was you could play all of your DS games, and it instantly brings in previous customers. And the one reason I haven't moved to something like the Switch Lite is because I've got lots of DS's, I've got lots of DS games and 3DS games, and that would be the end of them. So for Nintendo to bring out a brand new console, lose the Switch name, and pretty much reinvent what they did with the Switch, where they just broke away from everything previously, took a huge gamble, and then bring out the Switch. If they were to do that again with whatever they're going to call it, if they're going down that route, then I doubt they were going to call it the Switch 2, then it would seriously alienate any previous Nintendo owners. I think that is a big risk. So in my opinion, Nintendo are more than likely to bring out a Switch 2, which is a more powerful Switch, which has its own titles, but could also play current Switch titles, just like the 3DS could do with the DS. And it was a great thing. I love my new 3DS XL because it can play new 3DS games, 3DS games, DSi games, and DS games, and it just encompasses the whole of the DS range, and I think the Switch 2 should do the same. I'm not entirely set on the name Switch 2. I can't think of any Nintendo consoles where they've done that. Sega did with like the Mega Drive and the Mega Drive 2, and the Master System and the Master System 2. although they were more revisions rather than added in new hardware. Nintendo tend to go with the same name but give it an extension, so you've got DS went to the 3DS, the Wii went to the Wii U, so I don't know, could we see a Switch U? Not the greatest name, but there is a possibility like a Switch Pro, although that encompasses kind of like the PS4 and the PS4 Pro, where there was nothing exclusive to the PS4 Pro game wise. So I'm not sure. I think they should stick with the Switch name because it would just help people realise that the Switch 2 could play Switch games, although they did that with the Wii and the Wii U, and people didn't really get what the Wii U was. They didn't realise it was a brand new console. I think that's part of the reason it didn't do so well. They just thought it was a glorified Wii, and it wasn't. The Wii U is a fantastic console in its own right. So where Nintendo go with this, I'm not entirely sure. Will they bring out a Switch 2 that's backward compatible? Will they bring out a whole new system that just scraps the Switch? And if they did, they would then go and do what they normally do and re-release older games on this new hardware. Nintendo are a bit of a king of recycling in that way. No, I think they will bring out a Switch 2. It will be more powerful than the Switch. It will have a lot more features, possibly adding in VR, which is the new buzzword in gaming, and make it backward compatible to keep current users happy. And it means they can also release Switch games alongside it, so it lengthens the life of the Switch. So let me know what you think. Where do you think Nintendo are going to go with this whole replacement or successor to the Switch? Link, like, subscribe, enjoy.